Welcome to the Howl, where we get to go in-depth with students and faculty, hear their stories, and get a front row seat to learn about our community. I'm your host, Jacob Gurton, the Associate Director of Admissions here, and today we join School Counselor Donna Grant in the inviting space that is the Counseling Department to explore the challenges and conversations our students navigate every day. From her unique approach with therapy dogs to helping kids build confidence and manage homesickness, Donna shares valuable insights and even a little advice for parents as she recounts her own time as a middle school student. Without further ado, let's howl! Okay, good morning, Miss Grant. We are here on site in the counseling department to interview one of our experts at Rectory, and we're very excited to get to talk to you, Miss Grant, today. How are you feeling?
Donna's fine. I know there's a lot of us here, but
All right.
I'm feeling good.
Yeah, it's true. So Donna to me, one of the several at Rectory, but Miss Grant to the kids.
Absolutely.
So we're really excited to be here and to get a feel on site in the counseling department to get the idea of what goes on in here at Rectory. But before we get into the specifics of the department and what you guys do in here, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself and just kind of a little bit about your background and maybe how you got into this field? And
Sure. Well, actually, I think I am where I am because of 4-H, of all things. Grew up here in this town, a few miles away. Very active in a 4-H, which is a youth development leadership kind of program. And from there, I became a young adult and really was still hooked on youth development. And pretty much all of my roles have been focused on youth. I was in nursing school for quite a while and was at Day Kimball for about 14 years. But realized that I didn't have enough of a connection to kids in the nursing roles that I had. Or to the humanity side of humans. Nursing has become so much encumbered with paperwork and bureaucracy that I just wanted more human contact. So I diverted to social work, and I spent about 18 years as the executive director of TEAG, which is a nonprofit in North Grosvenor-Dale. And it's a full scope human service agency providing service to elders and kids and parents and food pantry, heating assistance, all kinds of things. Really meeting people in their most vulnerable places. Yeah. And that really gave me the motivation to go on and pursue a master's in social work, which kind of veered me into the counseling direction. When I left TEAG, I was the career counselor at Killingley High School for about 6 years, and felt a while back that there was a need to change that up. And it just coincided at the time when Mr. Williams was looking for a school counselor. So I've been here for 4 years.
Awesome. Well, that total through and through being a part of the community. And that sounds like that's a big thread in your history, kind of what got you here.
Very important to me. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's awesome. So why don't you tell us a little bit about, introduce the counseling department at Rectory a little bit, what it looks like, and just kind of a brief overview.
Sure. So when I came, it was for part-time counseling. Mr. Williams had said there's about 14 kids that they were working with on a regular basis, and that would be my caseload. And I quickly realized that there was a greater need than that. And he had asked me to stay on and go full-time, which I did. And there was really a need to grow a counseling department. Counseling was part of the residential services side of school. But there was a need to put more capacity in the department, especially after COVID. There is a mental health crisis in the country, and it's particularly difficult for adolescents that have kind of come up through some of the isolation of COVID. So we see that in the middle school years. So I quickly partnered with some colleges to find some intern capacity. And through hosting some interns, we have been able to hire another full-time school counselor who we got to know through her internship, Kayla Gustafson. And so now we're a department of 2, but very busy. Through the week and sometimes into the weekends and into the evenings. And I love it. I feel like we're able to now provide the services that kids really need here at Rectory.
And one of the cool things, so Rectory always loves to share its dogs, and that's something pretty unique to you and your work in the counseling department. You want to tell us a little bit about Haley and the work you do with your dogs?
So Haley is my heart dog. She is one of 5 standard poodles that I own. My partner and I breed standard poodles. We show them competitively. But what we breed for is dogs with a temperament to do service work. And I really got into that when I was at Killingly. Unfortunately, my first year there, we had a rash of unexpected deaths and student suicides. And so I brought the dogs in to sort of help kids emotionally regulate, and found that it was magical, how kids could just settle when they had a dog to pet, somebody to lean on. And the poodles, because of their coat, provides a whole other sensory aspect to dog therapy that's pretty unique. So I really started looking into it. I got certified in animal therapy, did some clinical work in that direction, and then really started to focus on how my dogs could be a part of healing. So my partner...
It's so natural for dogs anyways. Even if you're not going to therapy, you see a dog, it just brightens your day. It makes you feel better sometimes.
Exactly. And that's one of the things I love about Rectory is our dog-friendly policy here. Yeah. Faculty have them all over campus. They live in the dorms. They are in and out of the school building. And I think that's such a credit to Rectory to be able to help kids have that at-home sort of feeling if they're missing a pet, you know. But in counseling, there's even a deeper value, and it really is this emotionally regulating tool that we use. I bring 3 or 4 of my dogs into school. They're all certified, but usually 1 a day. My partner takes our dogs into nursing homes and elementary schools throughout Connecticut, and it's a service that we provide. Oh,
that's awesome. That's great. So I've heard this analogy used for like financial planning. It's like, you can manage your own money, but sound like a mechanic, like you can do it, but you bring your car to a mechanic and it helps you. And that's just like, I want to talk about counseling and how, it's your own thoughts. You should be able to work through it myself, but really like counseling is kind of like a thought partner, right? And sometimes we can kind of get in our own ways. Right. And I think having that as an idea of like, why not just have someone to bounce thoughts off of, removing the stigma of kind of like, oh, if you're going to the therapy, it's therapy, you need help, there's trauma, right? It doesn't have to be that. It could be, but really, talk about reducing, stigma around.
One of my favorite topics.
Yeah.
So I always tell my clients, I'm a private clinician in the community as well. I work here at Rectory, and then I have a private practice that I see people in the evenings and on weekends. And I always tell people that I work with that counseling is about being well and getting stronger. Counseling is about getting to know yourself. Counseling is about doing the reflection and having somebody to just be a mirror to gain some insight into who you are and what's important to you and how you want to grow. And sometimes when we start to figure those things out, we can take a step into our next best place instead of being stuck in a place that we're unhappy. Yeah. So it really isn't about coming to counseling because you're broken or weak. It's about coming to counseling because you're looking to gain strength. You go to the gym to lift weights and get stronger. Yeah. You come to counseling to become inwardly stronger.
I said the brain is a muscle.
Absolutely.
You have to exercise it.
Absolutely.
So that's really cool to hear from you and get that perspective. Now, would you be able to share a little bit about, how do students interact with the department or interact with you, and what does that look like for a student who wants to come to counseling?
Well, from the very beginning, we try to partner with the Learning Services Department and admissions to know if students who are joining us may have a history that might warrant counseling as one of the elements that we can offer at Rectory that will help them succeed. And so I engage with parents and kids sometimes before they get here to know if this is a service that they'd like their student to have access to on a regular basis. And often kids come we don't know that story. That's not part of something that kind of rose to the top, but as they're here and they're part of our community and in boarding school, it's, we see 24/7 who kids are. And sometimes teachers or advisors or coaches will say, hey, I think this kid might need somebody to talk to. Yeah. And so we reach out to kids. We have a regular caseload of students who come on a regular basis, usually once a week. And that on any given year starts out in the low 20s and ends in the mid 30s.
Yeah.
So in September, we're seeing, 22 kids that we have scheduled, and by June, we're seeing, 35. And some of that's because they like us, which I love. They come because they popped in with a friend and they're like, oh, you just get to talk about stuff that's bothering you up here? Can I come next week? So it's really, really, I think that's the bliss for me.
Yeah.
But the kids, we talk about so much. I mean, some of our kids struggle with ADHD. Some of our kids are on the autism spectrum. Incredibly intelligent, but struggle with social engagement and some of their social skills. So we work with them on developing the social side of themselves. We work with them on figuring out how to maintain focus, how to really lean into mindfulness and meditation to be able to calm their minds first and then their bodies, and then focus on their academics. And then sometimes we talk about stuff that's hard at home. In September, October, homesickness kind of is a real thing we deal with a lot, and give kids real strategies to learn how to use a calendar and chunk their day into manageable time slots that they can persevere through and build that stamina and grit. And by October, they're flying around here doing just great.
That's a great example. I haven't heard of that, like time chunking.
Yes.
To be able to manage the day. I like that because we have a lot of boarding students, right? So homesickness in a middle school boarding school, right? That's a very unique and special circumstance. 5th through 9th grade kids, across the world are away from home. So having someone that they can go to, and you named out a couple of different strategies. So I think we understand how kids are coping with anxiety and stress. And I walked in here and it's just like, the first thing I said was how good it smelled, right? It's the multi-sensory approach with the dogs, or the sense of smell. I think so that's a kind of a great, for that. And how do you really kind of instill like resilience and independence in kids, right? Because the goal, it doesn't have to be a goal of like, okay, I go see Miss Grant for a certain amount of times and I'm done. Everyone's a little bit different, but the goal, like you said, is to be stronger, right? So how do you really build resilience and independence with kids so they can start to begin positive thought patterns?
One of my favorite mantras is you can do hard things. A lot of times kids retreat from something that's challenging or difficult because they're just not sure they can do it. And because of that ambivalence and fear of failure, that they back away from it. And so we talk about how failure is a building block to success, that we talk about all the historic people who have failed. And failure is not something that you shy away from. Failure is something that you lean into as an opportunity for having learned how to not do it the next time. We talk a lot about behaviors in counseling, and how some kids do something that they are regretful about or feel shame from. And we talk a lot about the difference between guilt and shame, and how shame is really a toxic emotion, and that is more about who you are, whereas guilt is about something you did, and you can do something different next time, so you can grow from that. And then, those sessions really focus and drive home the mantra that you can do hard things. This was hard. It was hard to not get that grade that you really studied for. But it didn't break you, right? You're a little bruised, you're going to pick yourself up, and next time we're going to do it again. And you can do hard things. And I love it when kids come back into counseling and they're like, Mrs. Grant, I did a hard thing. And I just know that what we're saying is landing, and the kids are using some of these tools.
That's great. Yeah, it's so good to put like a term to it as well, and for kids to be able to identify it. And one of the terms that we've used since the beginning of the year is that trusted adult, right? A lot of kids talk about their go-to person, or
Who's
something that you spoke about. So can you talk about what that looks like at Rectory a little bit?
Sure. So the most important thing, we know from research done in the 1980s, Catalino and Hawkins did this incredible longitudinal study and found that the difference between people who make it and people who struggle is very often reduced down to one trusted adult in their life. So they followed this cohort of hundreds of people from childhood through adulthood, and the difference between those that were thriving and those that were struggling was the thriving people could name one trusted adult who made a difference, somebody that they had to go to. And when I was doing youth development work in the 90s and 2000s with Teague, I really delved into that research, and to me, that's the most important thing any child can have, is one trusted adult. Whether it's a parent, whether it's a scout leader, for me it was a 4-H leader, whether here on Rectory we have coaches, we have advisors, we have dorm parents, we have teachers, we have administrators, we have people in our maintenance department that become regular faces to our kids, and they might just establish a relationship with the housekeeper on their dorm who's their go-to person. It doesn't matter who it is, it matters that they care and that they can build that trusted relationship with a student where they feel like they have a confidant. And that we, as you know, I talk about that when kids arrive in September, and I hit it very often in assemblies for the first part of the school year, so that kids know that it's really important. And I encourage faculty here, when they see a student who's struggling, to ask them, who's your person? Everybody needs a person. We're not meant to live alone.
And that's one of the really cool things to put into context, is to understand that, the counseling department is just one piece of the puzzle that goes into what we're doing. And there's so much behind the scenes leading into the year about placement and literally room assignments, advisors. There's so much that goes into it, and it's extremely intricate and detailed. And I think that's something that that the Rectory puts a lot of effort into to make sure kids are successful.
And we put a lot of thought into how those relationships may happen. Lisa Hart figuring out what sections and what classes are the right ones for students to be placed in. Admissions, figuring out which students are the right ones to join us. I just, I come in over the summer and meet with a team of administrators as we pair advisories to say, gee, what do we know about this student, and who's the best advisor that, is most likely to meet this student in a way that they will join and build that trusting relationship that we're hoping happens in advisory. So a lot of thought in so many places, coaches, all over the campus.
So what I guess let's talk about the parent perspective a little bit. What advice, if you talk to them directly, what kind of advice would you have for parents if they're thinking about sending their middle school student off to boarding school, and how do I know that they're safe, and how do I know that they're going to have all these people, right? What kind of advice would you give to them?
Well, if they've made the decision to send their child to junior boarding school, I would encourage them to find some method of communication that really works for them and their child, a way that their child feels like they are still seen and heard by their parent. And I would encourage them in the beginning to understand that for their child to fully integrate into the Rectory community, less is more. So an email or a text during tech time is a better form of communication than a half an hour phone call that can really pull at their heartstrings and kind of get them in that place where it's really so much more difficult to get over being homesick. But also to reach out to the adults on campus, to send emails to their advisor, to their coach, to their teacher. Let people know that, you might be in China or Korea or Mexico or California, but you're interested, you care, you want to know what's going on with your kids.
Because the parents want that peace of mind, right? And that's a big thing. The communication with the school and the parent has to, that has to exist, and that has to show, because of course, the parent wants to know and has a part in that, right? And we're really partners in that, and it's sometimes hard if it's, just with the students. Sometimes the best sign is when you're not hearing from your student all the time, right? That means they're confident and comfortable, and that they're making friends or busy doing something else. It's not that they, don't want to call home, right? It's just that sometimes the relationship gets a little bit stronger, and it's just it builds from that point. So,
and it's important too that the outreach from parents, especially to the adults in the Rectory community, their coaches, their advisor, teachers, dorm parents, that lets kids know my mom and dad still care. They didn't send me away to boarding school. They've let me come here to have this incredible opportunity, but they're still really invested in me. And keeping those relationships whole while we have their kids for 6 or 8 or 9 months out of the year. Really important.
Absolutely. And maybe we can talk a little bit about social media and our tech policy and kind of what healthy tech use, and I guess it's a complicated topic just to answer after one question, right? But you want to talk a little bit about that and how you talk to kids about it in the counseling department?
Sure. Well, one of the things that we have come to learn is that regarding technology, less is more. That especially the group of kids we have right now, who are kids who have come through COVID, who have experienced some pretty severe isolation, have become so tech dependent. And what we know about kids using technology is that it does not help their interpersonal skills. Engaging with someone online is a very different set of skills than engaging with someone face to face. And unfortunately, we're seeing a generation of kids who have really diminished their social skills. So having everything that's available to kids here at Rectory, again, coaches, advisors, teachers, dorm parents, everybody, our encouragement with kids is to talk to someone, to put your phones down. I know that you have friends in China that you can talk to, but it's so important to, instead of using every minute of tech time, talk to your dorm parent about this. They might be a better resource for that problem that you're trying to vet with your friend in China. So I really, I worry about kids' use of technology, kids' dependence on technology. We're seeing, one of the things the research has borne out in the last few years is that there is now a clinical diagnosis of tech addiction. People who just can't put those, phones or screens down. And so we all have to be aware of that, and we have to be better stewards of our children's time. And that's incumbent on us finding ways to engage with our kids instead of letting a screen do the babysitting. So we're in a whole new place here. But I love that Rectory has a pretty strict tech policy. I love that we limit our kids' access to tech more than many schools, and I think that that's an advantage for us in helping our kids grow.
Yeah, I'm going to try to keep my kids young as possible and not ever grow up and need a phone. Because it's
good luck with that.
That's definitely something we could talk about for a while. Well, I just want to thank you for this opportunity to share and talk a little bit about the counseling department. You feel like there's anything that we missed that we need to hit, or you feel like pretty comfortable that we covered a lot of the overview? Because it just breaches the surface, right? I think it's good to introduce the idea, and people did get a little bit of an in-depth look at some of the specifics and what Rectory is all about. So I really appreciate this time. But thank you so much.
I appreciate having been asked to chat with you this morning, Jacob. I really appreciate that our administration and our board of trustees have sort of heard the call about the importance of adolescent mental health in 2025, 2023, when we started to really make an investment in this department. I think they realize how important it is that kids need to be emotionally healthy in order to be academically successful. I appreciate the priority that our school has placed on helping kids get there, managing their emotions and mental health so that they are ready to be academically engaged and successful.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Miss Grant. Donna, thank you. I appreciate it. And that's all for the bulk of the interview. And now, usually in our interviews, I try to ask some fun facts, or I try to get some interesting stories out of our adults. So we were talking about a pretty fun story that would be, people forget that we were in middle school once too.
We were.
Right?
We were.
And you had a really beautiful story about your middle school years and a little tie-in to Rectory.
A little connection to Rectory. Well, I have never lived more than 3 miles away from where I'm sitting right now. I grew up on Pomfret Hill, 2 miles that way. I was born at Day Kimball, 3 miles that way. I got married and moved to Fox Hill Road, which is about 2.5 miles that way. And now I live on Modoc Road, which is about 2 miles that way. So Pomfret in this community has always been near and dear. My mom was the school nurse at Pomfret Prep for a very long time, so I'm familiar with the private school the presence in Pomfret. But myself, one of the things I get asked a lot about from faculty is what's appropriate with kids in middle school, kind of diving into, feelings and hormones, right? They're in middle school. They're going through puberty. Kids start to realize that, I might be interested in that kid, or I have feelings for that kid. And that's all completely normal. So one of the challenges of helping in counseling is helping our kids navigate these budding new relationships, right? And I think it's kind of ironic that myself, again, we've all been through middle school. I used to live, like I said, 2 miles that way, and my very first middle school crush was a Rectory boy in 1974. And we used to leave love notes in the stone wall. So
That's
I would write a note to him
cool.
and stick it in the stone wall, and he would walk up from DGB and take the note and write me one back. And it was a very awesome way to dip my toes into the water of, young love.
The first direct message.
So yes, exactly, the first direct message. So
the love letter.
So I love that that's a piece of my own story, because it really helps me have some perspective about the reality of the kids, the age that we are, the age that our students are. And this is, young love is, is timeless as the ages. So, right, it is part of
Absolutely.
the group that we're working with and the kids that we have in our care.
Yeah.
So.
Well, thank you for sharing that story. I thought that was so cool and unique. I'm glad we got to share that. The last thing, I don't know if we warned you about the last thing that we do, but this is called the Howl.
Oh.
And, I hope Haley might be okay with it. We're going to howl, and she might join us if you're okay with that.
That's fine.
Is that
That's
cool?
fine. She's pretty stable.
All right. So just like the wolves, we'll see how good she is. If she thinks I'm shouting for help, if she comes to help me. All right, Haley, you doing good? So I'll howl, and then you can go ahead and follow me. Howl to your heart's content. All right, that's what I'll say. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm really excited to get this one out. And without further ado, howl!
I don't know that I could do that.
That's good. Keep it real. You don't have to. We do what we're comfortable with, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Jacob.
If you want to find out more about Rectory School, call the admissions office at 860-928-1328, or you can reach us at admissions@rectoryschool.org. Thanks for listening.